Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to an episode of Greatlocs. I'm Gunther the Great. Today we're going to be taking a look at the evolution of Lil Uzi Vert's Dreadlocks. Now, I was literally looking on his Instagram and his fan pages for about an hour trying to look at all the developments of his dreadlocks, and he's literally been through so many phases. So in this video I'm going to try to capture as much as possible, but if I really made a video on all of his steps and his process, it would be a 20-minute video. So I just got the highlight points of his evolution of his dreadlocking process from beginning to today, and you'll definitely learn a lot. Now, before we get into the video, I want to personally invite you to join the Greatlocs Masterclass. Without further ado, I'll see you in your first class. So if you guys do want to join the masterclass, make sure to click the link at the top of the description. It'll take you to a page that says whether you have straight hair or curly hair, pick which one you have. If you need help figuring out which hair type you are, make sure to click the link down below that says what is my hair type. It'll take you through the process, and then you'll be able to see if you want to choose the straight hair masterclass or the curly hair masterclass. Right now we have about the same amount of people in the curly hair class as the straight hair class, so people have been joining both, and both classes have helped out so many people. Cool thing about the masterclass, it's only $54.99, and you get the locking bundle for free, and you get to text me personally on any questions you have whatsoever. Alright guys, let's take a look at Lil Uzi Vert's Dreadlock Evolution. Alright, so this is Lil Uzi Vert in the very beginning, and you can see that he has like kind of a sponge rub hairstyle right here. It's kind of like a freeform-esque style. And a lot of people actually start out dreadlocks doing the sponge rub and then eventually start going into twisting with gel and so on and so forth. So that's what we see with Lil Uzi Vert's transformation as well, because during the beginning stages they were very kind of freeform and messy and so on and so forth. And towards the end they started to look really maintained. And this is when we really started to see his journey take off, is when he went fully blonde, and it barely even looked like he had any sort of dreadlocks whatsoever. It just looked like an afro with a little bit of tips developed. And I do want to mention that his hair type is a 4A. So if you do have a 4A hair type, you can follow the process that he did, which is most likely just twisting and allowing it to freeform over time. So it's kind of low maintenance what he did. Now, of course, there was many stages that he went between the last photo and this one right here. But like I said in the beginning, if I were to cover all of it, this video would be 20 minutes long. But he's went through so many colors like green, purple, blue, blonde. But I wanted to capture this photo right here because this was kind of the peak of his dreadlocks. And this is when I started to notice Lil Uzi Vert's hair. But as you guys can see, it's like an afro in the bottom, and the tips are pretty well maintained, but the roots are not maintained whatsoever. So if your hair looks like Lil Uzi Vert's but you don't want it to look like that, then you can just handle all that with an interlocking tool. It's very easy to use, and I go over that in the Greatlocs Masterclass. Because like I tell everybody, there's two forms of maintenance. There's length maintenance and then there's root maintenance. And there's two different tools for those maintenances, but I cover that in the match class, so if you want to know all about that, make sure to sign up for it. But then flash forward probably about a year, or maybe even 2 years, we see that he starts to maintain his hair a little bit more. And one thing that I started to notice is that he could have been cutting and reattaching his dreadlocks, and we've seen this with so many people, so I wouldn't doubt it. And he definitely did do this, but I'm just not sure if it was at this stage or not. We've seen people like Young Thug, we've seen people like Lil Pump, Smoke Purp that actually cut off their dreadlocks and then reattach them. So I wouldn't be surprised that Lil Uzi Vert did the same already at this point, but he did do it later on in the future, which we will see here shortly. But we can see that the length of his dreadlocks are very well maintained, but we do see that there's like a knot in the middle where it breaks off into the blue, and that's where you could possibly reattach the dreadlocks. Now this is probably the healthiest I've seen Lil Uzi Vert's hair, because we see all of his natural hair color mostly. Obviously that it is dyed back to a dark brown, and then you see a little bit of the green down there. But like I said, this is probably the healthiest that we've seen his dreadlocks. And the maintenance that he did here was interlocking and a little bit of twisting with gel, but not too much twisting with gel, mostly just interlocking. That's why the roots never seemed completely maintained with Lil Uzi Vert. Now this is probably my favorite stage of his dreadlocks, although that the one before was probably the most healthiest, but I feel like this one was really cool to see. And this is definitely when he was cutting and reattaching dreadlocks, just because the ones in the front are really long. You can see all those interlocks down at the tip, and that's from reattaching dreadlocks. And the blunting of his tips are really thick, and that's, like I said, from reattaching the dreadlocks as well. And those are all signs showing that people cut off the dreadlocks and reattach them. But you can see that he has a really, really short one up there as well, and then really long ones. But all of them are different lengths, and it's just because some of them were cut, some of them are reattached. And here we see that his hair is actually curly, so he most likely pulled them out of braids right here. And we never really seen him do too many hairstyles. I think he did 2-strand twists sometimes, but we never seen him do too many hairstyles. He usually just wore it down or back in a bun. The interesting thing about this next photo is that he kind of looks like Lil Wayne in this one, and there are times where he does look like Young Thug and sometimes that he looks like Lil Wayne, which is very interesting to see. But we see that his hair is actually turning out very well. It's getting longer. But one thing you will notice is that his hair is kind of looking how Lil Pump started taking a turn, especially with all the dyeing and all the processing that he's doing with his hair. Because when you bleach the hair, it really destroys it. Because not only is it taking out its pigment, but it's taking out all the proteins and all the healthy oils that actually are in the hair. It dries it out completely, which isn't a terrible thing considering that it's dreadlocks. But over time, if you constantly are doing it, then it will eventually just destroy them. And that's possibly why we've seen Lil Uzi Vert cut his dreadlocks off and comb out the roots. And to be honest, he probably just cut them to a certain length, because that length that you see at the top of his head probably wasn't even locked up. But you can see those two dreadlocks hanging down in the front just look torn up. The roots are very thin, and that could just be from bleaching and processing. And obviously we've seen him move into the braids next, and he wore braids quite often. And then what I thought was really interesting is on one of these video shoots that he did, is his hair was actually completely cut off. All of it was gone. So I just wanted to show you that before I move on to this next photo, which this photo right here was only shortly after that post that I just showed you. So it's really interesting. This is obviously 100% dreadlock extensions. And when you're looking at the dreadlocks, you can obviously tell that that isn't his hair type. They're really thick. They're very interesting looking. Looks like straight hair dreadlocks. And it's really interesting that he went that route. And his video actually shows a little bit better how his dreadlocks looked in this stage. Very thick, and actually looked kind of cool because they were very maintained. Something that we never seen in Lil Uzi Vert's hair. But you guys, let me know what you think about Lil Uzi Vert's dreadlocks down below. Of course, there were so many stages that I skipped over because he's went through so much. But comment down below your favorite stage. Also, comment down below who you'd like to see next. But guys, like always, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.